Hello everyone, my name is William and thank you for coming back to the third tutorial in making Unity C# scripts. And today we're going to be working on variables. And variables are a little complicated, so I might lose you and hopefully I don't, so I'll try to go slow. But there's a lot of stuff we have to work on this lesson. So let's go to scripts, right click here, and then we'll create a new C# script and let's call this variables. And then let's go to the script object, go here to the settings for the hello world script, and let's remove this script. And then we can just drag the variable script here. And then we can double click on it here and open it that way. Okay, so here we are. And now what we're going to do is I'm going to explain to you how variables work, but first let's remove the update function since we're not going to be using that this time. And so what we're going to do is we're going to explain variables first. And how variables work is that there's many of them and they can be reused and they're quite useful because of that. And they all have their own names. So let's start out by explaining different variable types, and these are there are many variable types, but these are the most commonly used, such as integer. And I'm calling it public so that we can be accessible in the inspector, but I'll explain scope later in this video. So public int score is equal to 0. Now integers are whole numbers, and for example these can be 0, 1, or -2, essentially numbers without decimal points. So this is mostly useful for things such as health or score, numbers that you want to be whole, not decimal points, as to not bring up confusion. But if you want a number with a decimal point, for example, you gotta do public float distance is equal to 5.53, for example. And floats are numbers with decimal points. And so they can be anything such as -0.125, 124, 5455. They can be numbers such as 23.278, or they can just be 5.0. And these are useful for things such as distance or rotation or anything with complex calculations that are required to be exact. And then there's another variable type, because these are just numbers, but we can also use strings, which are essentially letters, such as a string, let's say string item name is equal to sword. Yeah, this generic sword. And strings can be any character. For example, they can be things, they can have characters such as I or 0 or capital A, or they can have special characters such as $sign or $sign. So it's mostly used for naming things such as items or descriptions, or having descriptions for items and such. And also we can do booleans. Well, this is the last one we're going to talk about. Booleans are essentially checks, so they can have to be true or false. So we're going to set this to true, and what happens is booleans are either true or false. So they can be true, they can be false, but they can't be anything else. So this one is true. So this will be mostly used for checks such as are you grounded or are you in the air. And so if you're grounded, you can jump. If not grounded, then you cannot jump, for example. And so now that we've talked about the most common variable types, let's talk about scope. And so there are certain types of scope. I showed you public, and what's so special about public is that they can be accessed by other classes, and they can also show up in the inspector, such as scores in the inspector, we can edit it here. Distances in the inspector, so is item name and grounded, the boolean. So, and the scope determines how accessible it is by other classes as well. So if you do private health is equal to 10, then private variables can be accessed, cannot be accessed by other classes and are not shown in inspector. private int health. And then there's also static variables, so public static total score, in total score is equal to 150, and static variables are true for each instance of script. And I strongly advise you to use sparingly, because this is true for every instance. So if one enemy has 5 health and that enemy loses 2 health, then all enemies in the game lose 2 health if you use the same static variable for all of them. So I advise you use private or public most of the time. And so we can also change variables, so they're not the same always. So let's, for example, print health, right? So we print health, then we do health is equal to health plus 10, so we add 10 to health, and then we print health again. And what do you think this will give us? Health is 10, we add 10 to it, and then we print it again. So it should give us 20, right? So let's play. Let's check the console, and as we can see, its health is 10, then it's down to 20. And so now that we know that, let's work on some operations. So we can also call variables inside functions too, but they cannot be public. See, the public doesn't show up. So let's set int num1 is equal to 2, int num2 is equal to 9, and int num3 is equal to 11, and then int output is equal to let's just set int output, and then let's do operations. So let's do addition first. So addition, so output is equal to num1 plus num2 print output. So in essence it'll be 2 plus 9. Let's see what that gives us. That gives us 11, so we can do that. We can also do subtraction. So we can do num1 minus num2, and let's see what that gives us. That gives us -7 because num1 is 2, and that's minus 9, so it's a negative number. And we can also do multiplication, so let's do num2 times num3. So let's do a star, which is used for multiplication. Go back here, play, and then we get 99. And so yeah, and then there's one more that's commonly used, that's division. So let's do num1 divided by num2, and this I'm not sure what this will give us, but it'll definitely not be a decimal, which it should be because it's an integer, and it gives us 0 because that doesn't work. And let's try num2 divided by num1 instead. I want to show you what this actually gives us. This gives us 4, because, but if we want the remainder, then we have to do the modulus, and modulus is the remainder of 2 values. So 801 modulus 10, no, modulus 10 is equal to 1. Does it make sense? Because we get rid of if we divide by 10, then what's left after 800 divided by 10 is only 1 left. So let's see what we get left, and we should get we get 1 left because there's 1 left after 4 times 2 is 8, and then 1 more is 9. And then what we also have to worry about is the order of operations. So if we were to do this, let's delete this comment. So output is equal to num1 plus num2 times num3. So this should be this should give us, you think would give us 2 plus 9, so it would give us 7 times 11, which is 77, but no, that's not what it works. It's 9 times 11, and then plus 2, so it'll be 101. And as we can see, it's 101, but that's because, according to order of operations, this gets activated first, because the multiplication has priority over addition. But if we were, however, to put parentheses over the numbers, then what happens is the numbers are actually ordered differently. So we add 9 and 2 together, then we times it by 11. And so that's it for order of variables and scope and order of operations. So I appreciate your time, and I'll see you in the next lesson where we're going to talk about input and if statements. Okay, so bye.